Captain Jake Morrison walked into the massive council chambers with his shoulders straight and his face calm. The room was bigger than any building back on Earth and filled with creatures that looked like they came from nightmares and dreams mixed together. Some floated in the air with tentacles that moved like water. Others crawled on 8 legs that clicked against the metal floor. A few stood tall on 2 legs like humans, but their skin was blue or green or covered in scales that caught the light. Jake had been coming to these meetings for 3 years now. He knew every alien face in the room and most of their names. Behind him walked Ambassador Lisa Carter, who always wore her best diplomatic smile. She carried a data pad that held 15 years of human history in council space. Commander Alex Rivera followed next with his military uniform pressed and clean. Dr. Helen Wright came after him with her research notes tucked under one arm. Trade Representative Paul Davis brought up the rear with contracts and trade agreements that had made both humans and aliens rich. The 5 humans took their seats in the section marked for Earth representatives. Around them sat delegates from 23 different alien species. The Galactic Council had been meeting for over 2,000 years. Humans had only been members for 15 years, but they had made their mark quickly. Councillor Vexithara stood at the center podium. She was from the Zalani Confederation and looked like a walking crystal sculpture. When she moved, her body made soft chiming sounds. Her voice came through the translation devices as cold and sharp as winter wind. The council has reached its final decision regarding the human question, she announced. Her crystal appendages tapped against the podium in a rhythm that Jake had learned meant she was pleased with herself. After careful consideration of human activities over the past 15 years, the Council has determined that Earth and its colonies pose a significant threat to galactic stability. Jake felt his jaw muscles tighten, but kept his face blank. He had expected this. The signs had been there for months. Too many complaints about human expansion. Too many questions about human military strength. Too many whispers about how humans solve problems differently than everyone else. Human military forces have grown beyond acceptable limits, continued Vexithara. Human colonies have expanded faster than any species in recorded council history. Human involvement in border disputes has become excessive and concerning. The council can no longer ignore these troubling patterns. Behind the crystal alien, Jake could see other council members nodding their approval. The Corvin delegate moved his massive tentacles in what humans had learned meant agreement. His species looked like giant squids that had learned to walk upright. The Threx representative clicked his mandibles together in the insect version of applause. His people looked like praying mantises the size of humans with 4 arms instead of 2. Dr. Helen Wright shifted in her seat beside Jake. She had spent 5 years working with alien scientists on projects that could change the galaxy. Her research on faster-than-light communication was almost finished. Her work on energy shields had already saved thousands of alien lives. None of that seemed to matter now. Therefore, Vexithara's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. The Galactic Council hereby strips Earth of its voting rights and reduces human status to that of a protected species. All human military vessels must withdraw from Council space immediately. All human colonies outside the Sol system must be abandoned within 6 standard months. All human personnel working on Council projects must return to Earth within 30 days. The words hit the human delegation like physical blows. Protected species status was what the Council gave to primitive civilizations that had not yet developed. Space travel. It meant humans would be treated like children who needed adult supervision. It meant Earth would be isolated from the rest of the galaxy like a quarantine zone. Human representatives have 48 standard hours to collect their belongings and depart Council space, Vexithara concluded. This decision is final and not subject to appeal. Jake looked around the chamber at faces that had once welcomed human help. The Dracani delegate who had begged for human peacekeepers when pirates attacked his trade routes now stared at the ceiling. The Ethereal Collective representative who had praised human diplomats for ending a 300-year war between her people and the Sigma Centauri Alliance now studied her glowing hands with great interest. Commander Alex Rivera leaned forward, slightly. Jake could see the anger in his friend's eyes. Alex commanded a fleet of 37 human ships scattered across Council space. Those ships had saved alien lives countless times. They had fought pirates and raiders and worse things that came from the dark between stars. Now those same ships were being ordered to leave like unwelcome guests. Ambassador Lisa Carter's fingers moved across her datapad. Jake knew she was sending encrypted messages back to Earth. The news would reach President Sarah Martinez within hours. The president would want to know every detail about how 15 years of careful diplomacy had ended in total failure. Trade Representative Paul Davis stared at his contracts with a sick expression. Human merchants had built trading networks that connected dozens of alien species. Human banks had loaned money to rebuild worlds damaged by war. Human transportation companies had cut shipping times across the galaxy by 40%. All of that would end now. Jake stood up slowly. The chamber fell silent as every alien eye turned toward him. Some of the creatures had eyes like humans. Others had compound eyes like insects. A few had sensory organs that humans could not even identify. All of them were watching to see how Earth's representatives would react to their exile. "We understand," Jake said simply. His voice carried clearly across the vast room without any amplification. "We will begin preparations immediately." The brevity of his response seemed to shock the assembled aliens. They had expected protests and arguments. They had prepared for threats and demands. Some had probably hoped for tears and begging. Instead, they got 5 words and silence. Lisa Carter closed her datapad with a soft click. Alex Rivera stood and smoothed his uniform jacket. Dr. Helen Wright gathered her research notes with careful precision. Paul Davis rolled up his contracts and secured them with rubber bands. The 5 humans walked toward the exit in perfect formation. Their footsteps echoed in the silent chamber. Not one of them looked back at the aliens who had voted to exile them. Not one of them spoke another word. They simply left. The massive doors closed behind them with a soft hiss. In the chamber they left behind, 23 alien species sat in uncomfortable silence. None of them seemed quite sure what had just happened. They had expected drama, but gotten quiet dignity instead. Somehow that made everything worse. Lieutenant Commander Ben Parker sat in his captain's chair aboard the UES Discovery when the message arrived. The ship was 3 months out from Earth exploring a new star system that the Council had asked them to map. His crew had been working around the clock for 6 weeks, cataloging planets and moons and asteroids that might be useful to alien civilizations. The communication array beeped twice, and Navigator Katie Bell looked up from her station with confusion on her face. "Sir, we are receiving a priority message from Earth Command. It is encrypted with the highest security codes." Ben frowned and walked over to the main display screen. Priority messages were rare out here in unexplored space. The last one had been 3 years ago when the Corvin mining colonies came under attack from raiders. That message had sent the Discovery racing across the galaxy to help defend alien civilians who were under threat. The decryption finished and words appeared on the screen that made Ben's blood run cold. Operation Exodus was the code name for complete human withdrawal from Council space. It was a plan that military commanders hoped would never be used. The message was short and clear. All human vessels were ordered to abandon their current missions and return to Sol System immediately. No exceptions would be made. No delays would be accepted. "Katie, send a message to all department heads," Ben said quietly. "Emergency meeting in the conference room in 10 minutes. The Discovery had been Ben's home for 4 years. The ship was designed for long-range exploration and could stay in space for up to 5 years without returning to port. The crew of 80, men and women, had become like family during their missions together. They had discovered 6 new planets that could support life. They had made first contact with 2 alien species that had never seen humans before. They had mapped trade routes that would be used by merchant ships for decades to come. All of that work would now benefit other species while humans were locked away in their home system like prisoners. Chief Engineer Roy Mitchell was the first to arrive at the meeting. He was a small man with grease under his fingernails and worry lines around his eyes. Behind him came Dr. Nancy White, who served as the ship's scientist and medical officer. Security Chief Tom Bradley followed with his usual military posture. Navigator Katie Bell came last, carrying her star charts and navigation computers. "I will make this simple," Ben told his senior staff. The Galactic Council has expelled humanity. We have been ordered home, and we are not coming back." The silence that followed was heavy and painful. Dr. White had been working on a research project with alien scientists for 2 years. Her work on genetic diseases could save millions of lives across dozens of species. Chief Mitchell had been designing new engine systems that would make space travel faster and safer for everyone. Security Chief Bradley had been training alien security forces in anti-piracy tactics that were already reducing attacks on merchant vessels. "What about our mission here?" asked Dr. White. "We are only 3 weeks away from completing the survey of this system. The Council specifically requested this information for their expansion planning." Ben shook his head. "Our orders are clear. We leave immediately and we take all our data with us. Nothing gets left behind for the Council to use." Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out on dozens of human ships. The UES Defender was the most advanced warship in the human fleet. Captain Nicole Harris commanded the massive vessel and its crew of 800 men and women. The Defender had been stationed at the border between Threx space and the territory controlled by Orion pirates. For 5 years, the Defender and her escort ships had kept the peace in that dangerous region. Pirates thought twice about attacking merchant vessels when they knew human warships were patrolling nearby. The Threx had been able to expand their trade routes because human peacekeepers guaranteed safe passage through contested space. "Captain," Harris read the withdrawal order with a sick feeling in her stomach. The Threx leadership had already sent 3 messages begging her to ignore Earth's commands and stay at her post. Local alien merchants were offering to pay the human fleet directly if they would continue providing protection. None of that mattered. Now, "Helm set course for Sol system," Harris ordered. "Maximum speed." "Ma'am, what about the Threx colonies?" asked her first officer, Commander Steve Johnson. "Intelligence reports indicate pirate fleets are already massing for attacks. Without our presence here, they will be defenseless." Harris looked out at the stars through the bridge windows. Somewhere out there, alien families were going about their daily lives not knowing that their protectors were about to abandon them. Children were playing games while their parents worked jobs that would disappear when pirate raids made trade impossible. None of those innocent people had voted to exile humanity, but they would pay the price anyway. "Our orders are clear, Commander," Harris said firmly. "We are no longer welcome in Council space. The aliens made their choice and now they will live with the consequences." On research stations scattered across the galaxy, human scientists were packing up years of work. Dr. Helen Wright's laboratory on Nexus Prime contained breakthrough research on faster-than-light communication. Her alien colleagues begged her to leave copies of her data behind, but she refused. The Council had declared humanity too dangerous to remain in civilized space. They could solve their communication problems without human help. Trading posts that had operated for over a decade were shutting down within hours. Human merchants had served as neutral intermediaries between alien species that refused to deal with each other directly. The complex web of 3-way trades that kept goods flowing across the galaxy depended on human honesty and reliability. Without human traders, many alien civilizations would lose access to resources they needed to survive. Military bases that had protected alien worlds from pirates and raiders were being abandoned. Human peacekeepers had earned respect from all sides through their willingness to take casualties defending strangers. Their reputation for fairness had made them ideal mediators in disputes between alien species. Now those mediators were going home and taking their expertise with them. The withdrawal was happening with terrifying efficiency. Human ships converged on Sol system from every corner of Council space. No vessel requested extended time to finish their missions. No colonist petitioned to remain on alien worlds. No researcher begged for permission to complete their projects. They simply packed up and left. Admiral Frank Turner waited at the edge of Sol system as the returning fleet assembled. Ship after ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel and took position in formation. Exploration vessels and research ships, and merchant freighters and military escorts all coming home together. Some had been gone for years on deep space missions. Others had been stationed permanently at alien outposts. When the last ship arrived, Admiral Turner gave the order that would change the galaxy forever. Sol system was now closed to all alien vessels. No council ship would be permitted to enter human space without explicit invitation from Earth government. The isolation that the council had demanded was now complete. Humanity had walked away in silence. The universe would learn what that silence meant. Counselor Zethkar of the Threx Collective stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council, with his 4 arms moving in frantic patterns. His insect-like features were drawn tight with worry, and his mandibles clicked rapidly as he spoke. 3 months had passed since the humans departed, and the galaxy was falling apart faster than anyone had expected. The situation in the border territories has become impossible, Zethkar announced to the assembled delegates. Orion pirates have launched coordinated attacks on 17 of our outer colonies. Our shipping lanes are blocked. Our mining operations are under constant threat. We have lost contact with 4 entire star systems. The other council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. None of them wanted to admit that removing the humans had been a terrible mistake, but the evidence was becoming impossible to ignore. The Threx had been one of the strongest voices calling for human expulsion. Now they were begging for help that no one could provide. Ambassador Yulmoth of the Corvin Mining Consortium spoke next. His massive tentacles writhed as he described losses that would have been unthinkable just months earlier. Our asteroid mining platforms have been attacked 12 times in the past month alone. The pirates know we cannot defend ourselves without human escort ships. They strike and disappear before our security forces can respond. Counselor Vexthara listened to the reports with growing alarm. The crystal alien had been so proud when the council voted to exile humanity. She had believed that removing the aggressive humans would bring peace and stability to the galaxy. Instead, it had brought chaos and destruction on a scale that no one had imagined possible. The numbers were devastating. Trade between alien species had dropped by 60% because merchants were afraid to travel without human protection. 3 major shipping companies had gone out of business completely. The neutral zones that humans had patrolled were now controlled by pirates who demanded tribute from anyone wanting safe passage. Dr. Felnara of the Zelani Confederation had her own problems to report. She had been working with human scientist Dr. Helen Wright on quantum physics research that could revolutionize space travel. When the humans departed, they took all their research data with them, leaving massive gaps that no alien scientist could fill. We cannot complete the faster-than-light communication project without human theoretical frameworks, Felnara admitted to the council. Their understanding of quantum mechanics was far beyond our current knowledge. We are essentially starting from the beginning. Similar stories echoed throughout council space. The humans had not just been traders and peacekeepers. They had been research partners whose different perspective on science had accelerated dozens of important projects. Their ability to think outside traditional patterns had led to breakthroughs that alien scientists had missed for centuries. On the planet Xerion, Prime and alien research teams stared at incomplete data that Dr. Helen Wright had been analyzing before her departure. The project involved developing new energy shields that could protect entire planets from solar radiation. Without the human scientists' innovative approach, the alien researchers could not understand how to proceed with the work. The economic collapse was even worse than the scientific setbacks. Human merchants had served as neutral intermediaries between species that refused to trade directly with each other. The proud Dracani would not lower themselves to negotiate with the merchant-class Sigma Centauri traders. The suspicious, ethereal collective would not trust any species except humans to handle their rare mineral exports. Without human middlemen, these complex trading relationships simply ended. The Dracani could not get the rare metals they needed for their advanced technology. The Sigma Centauri lost their biggest customers for manufactured goods. The ethereal collective's mining operations became worthless because they had no way to sell their products to species they did not trust. Entire star systems that had depended on human-facilitated trade found themselves cut off from the galactic economy. Unemployment rose as factories closed and shipping companies went bankrupt. Worlds that had been wealthy and prosperous just months earlier were struggling to feed their populations. The security situation grew worse every day. Orion pirates had always been a problem, but human peacekeeping fleets had kept them contained to a few lawless systems on the galactic rim. Without human patrols, the pirates expanded rapidly into territory that had been safe for decades. Captain Rex Stormwind commanded the largest pirate fleet in the galaxy. He was a human who had turned to crime years before Earth joined the Council. When he learned that human peacekeepers had been ordered home, he saw an opportunity that was too good to miss. "The galaxy is wide open, boys," Stormwind told his crew, of mixed human and alien criminals. "No more human navy hunting us down. No more neutral zones we cannot enter. Time to take what we want." The pirate fleets that had hidden in asteroid fields and remote star systems now operated openly. They established permanent bases in former human patrol zones and began demanding protection money from merchant vessels. Alien security forces that tried to stop them were easily defeated or avoided. The Threx military had been designed to fight other insect-like species using traditional tactics. They were no match for human-trained pirates who used guerrilla warfare and hit-and-run attacks. The Corvan defense fleet was built around massive slow-moving ships that could not catch the fast raiders that struck their mining operations. Even worse was the growing tension between Council species themselves. Without human mediators to resolve, disputes' old grudges began to resurface. The Dracani accused the Sigma Centauri of stealing their trade routes. The Ethereal Collective claimed that Zilani scientists had stolen research data. Minor disagreements that humans would have settled in hours now festered into major diplomatic crises. 3 council members had already withdrawn from active participation in galactic affairs. The Aquatic Collective sealed their underwater cities and refused to communicate with surface dwellers. The nomad clans disappeared entirely into deep space. The Crystal Gardens went into isolation and would not respond to any diplomatic contact. Counselor Vexthera stood alone in her private chambers staring out at space through the massive windows. The view that had once showed busy shipping lanes, filled with vessels from dozens of species, now revealed mostly empty space. Occasionally a single ship would pass by moving quickly and keeping its weapons powered in case of pirate attack. The irony was becoming clear to everyone, except those who refused to see it. The Council had expelled humanity for being too aggressive and militaristic. But human aggression had been directed at pirates and raiders and threats to innocent civilians. Human military strength had protected the weak from the strong. Now the eyesight weak had no protection and the strong were taking everything they wanted. The galaxy was learning what peace looked like without humans to enforce it. Commander Susan Blake sat in the control room of Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station, watching emergency signals flood in from across the galaxy. 1 year had passed since humanity's withdrawal from Council space, and the situation had grown worse than anyone had imagined possible. Behind her, dozens of technicians tracked communications from alien worlds that were crying out for help that would not come. "Ma'am, we are receiving another distress call from the Zilani outer colonies," reported technician Mike Collins. His voice was tight with controlled emotion as he read the incoming data. "They report contact with something they are calling Void Hunters. 3 planets have gone completely dark in the past week." Susan felt her blood turn cold. She had heard stories about the Void Hunters from her grandfather, who had served in the early exploration fleets. The creatures were nightmares made real that emerged from the empty space between galaxies to feed on the life force of entire worlds. They appeared without warning and left behind planets stripped of all living things. For over 300 years, the Void Hunters had been nothing more than scary stories that older spacers told to frighten rookies. Most people believed they were legends or myths created to explain unexplored regions of space. But the old records were clear about one thing. When the Void Hunters came, only humanity had ever found a way to fight them. The monitoring equipment lit up with new signals, as more alien worlds reported contact with the energy beings. The creatures moved through space like living shadows, consuming everything in their path. Entire star systems were going silent as the hunters swept through them, leaving behind empty worlds orbiting dead suns. Admiral Frank Turner studied the tactical displays with growing concern. His intelligence officers had been tracking the Void Hunter movement for weeks now. The creatures were following the same patterns described in ancient human records. They emerged from dark space in small groups, then gathered into larger fleets before attacking populated systems. Sir, the Zalani are requesting immediate military assistance, reported Communications Officer Jane Walsh. They are offering full restoration of human council membership in exchange for intervention against the Void Hunters. Turner shook his head slowly. Earth's government had made its position clear. Humanity would not intervene in galactic affairs while under protected species status. The Council had declared humans too dangerous to participate in civilization. If they wanted protection from real dangers, they would have to handle it themselves. The Void Hunters were unlike any normal military threat. They existed as pure energy that could pass through most forms of matter like it was not there. Conventional weapons had no effect on them. Force fields and armor plating meant nothing to creatures that could drain the life from a planet without ever landing on its surface. Only humanity had developed weapons capable of disrupting the energy patterns that held the Void Hunters together. The technology was based on research that human scientists had conducted during their final year of Council membership. Dr. Helen Wright had been studying quantum energy matrices when she made the breakthrough that led to the first effective Void Hunter countermeasures. The alien species had mocked human paranoia about threats from dark space. They called human military preparations excessive and dangerous. Now those same aliens were learning why humans built such powerful weapons and maintained such large fleets. The galaxy was full of things that wanted to destroy civilization, and humans had been the only ones preparing to fight them. Captain Nicole Harris stood on the bridge of the UES Defender watching long-range sensors track the Void Hunter advance. Her ship carried the most advanced anti-void weapons in the human fleet. The massive vessel could single-handedly destroy entire Void Hunter formations if deployed properly. But the Defender remained in Sol system under orders to stay out of Council space. Ma'am, the Corvin Mining Consortium is offering to transfer ownership of 12 star systems to Earth in exchange for protection, reported her tactical officer, Lieutenant Bob Chen. They say the Void Hunters have consumed 4 of their major mining colonies and are moving toward their home worlds. Harris felt sympathy for the alien miners who had always treated humans fairly. But orders were orders. Earth's leadership had decided that if the Council wanted humanity isolated, then isolation was what they would get. No exceptions would be made even for species that had been friendly to humans. The tactical situation was becoming desperate for the alien civilizations. Void Hunter fleets had grown from small scouting groups to massive formations containing hundreds of energy creatures. They moved through space in perfect coordination, draining entire solar systems before disappearing back into dark space to digest their harvest. The Threx Collective had mobilized their entire military to fight the creatures, but their weapons were useless. Insect warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds found themselves helpless against enemies they could not touch. Their proud fleets were destroyed without inflicting any damage on the Void Hunters. Worse yet, the economic collapse caused by humanity's withdrawal had weakened every council species at the worst possible time. The Dracani could not afford to maintain their defense fleets because trade disruption had bankrupted their government. The Ethereal Collective was too busy fighting pirates to send forces against the Void Hunters. The Sigma Centauri had lost so many trade partners that they could barely feed their own populations. Dr. Helen Wright watched the reports from her laboratory on Earth with growing horror. She possessed the knowledge that could save billions of alien lives, but she was forbidden from sharing it. The quantum disruption technology that she had developed could turn the tide against the Void Hunters if deployed properly. But Earth's government would not permit any technology transfer to species that had voted to exile humanity. The scientific community on Earth was divided about the policy. Some researchers argued that knowledge should be shared to prevent genocide even if aliens had treated humans poorly. Others pointed out that the Council had specifically declared human science too dangerous for galactic civilization. If human weapons were too scary for aliens to accept, then aliens could face the Void Hunters without them. President Sarah Martinez received hourly updates about the deteriorating situation in Council space. 17 star systems had gone completely dark as the Void Hunters consumed everything capable of supporting life. Refugee fleets were fleeing toward the galactic core, carrying survivors who had watched their homeworlds die. The political pressure on Earth was enormous. News broadcasts showed images of alien children crying as their parents loaded them onto evacuation ships. Humanitarian organizations demanded that Earth intervene to prevent genocide. Military leaders argued that protecting innocent life was more important than political disputes. But Martinez held firm to the isolation policy. The Galactic Council had made their choice when they voted to exile humanity. They had called humans aggressive and militaristic and dangerous to galactic peace. Now they were learning what real danger looked like when humans were not there to face it. The irony was bitter and complete. Aliens had feared human weapons and human military strength. They had worried that humans were too quick to fight and too willing to use violence. But human violence had always been directed at protecting the innocent from those who would harm them. Now the innocent had no protection, and the galaxy was paying the ultimate price. Councillor Vexithera stood alone in the empty council chambers surrounded by vacant seats that would never be filled again. 2 years had passed since humanity's exile, and the Galactic Council was a shadow of its former self. Of the 23 species that had once governed the galaxy together, only 7 remained as active members. The rest had either fallen to the Void Hunters, been conquered by pirates, or simply disappeared into the darkness between stars. The chamber where she had once proudly announced humanity's expulsion now felt like a tomb. The seats of the Threx Collective sat empty because their civilization had collapsed under pirate raids 6 months ago. The Corvin delegation's area was vacant because their mining empire had been consumed by void hunters who stripped their worlds of all life. 3 other species had vanished completely, leaving behind empty star systems and unanswered questions about where their populations had gone. Vexithera's crystalline form had lost much of its luster over the past 2 years. The stress of watching galactic civilization crumble had taken its toll on her body and mind. She had been so certain that removing the aggressive humans would bring peace to the galaxy. Instead, it had brought destruction on a scale that no one had thought possible. Communication console in front of her chair chimed softly, indicating an incoming transmission. The sender identification made her crystal heart resonate with something that might have been hope. Captain Jake Morrison of Earth Space Command was requesting a direct communication link. She accepted the call immediately, desperate for any contact with the species that had once held the galaxy together. Jake Morrison appeared on the holographic display wearing the same calm expression he had shown during humanity's last day in council chambers. Behind him, Vexithara could see the bridge of an advanced human vessel that looked centuries ahead of anything the council had ever possessed. The technology visible in the background suggested that humanity had not been idle during their 2 years of isolation. Councillor Vexithera, Jake said in his quiet voice that had once carried authority throughout the galaxy. I understand the council has been experiencing some difficulties. Vexithera wanted to collapse and beg for forgiveness. She wanted to offer anything that humanity might want in exchange for their return to galactic civilization. She wanted to admit that the council had made the worst mistake in its 2,000-year history. Instead, she found herself asking the question that had haunted her for months. What would it take for humanity to reconsider their isolation from galactic affairs? Jake's expression did not change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. The council made their position very clear 2 years ago. Humanity was deemed too dangerous, too militaristic, and too reckless to participate in civilized galactic society. We accepted that judgment and acted accordingly. But the situation has changed dramatically since then, Vexithara said desperately. The Void Hunters have consumed 47 star systems. Pirate fleets control nearly half of what used to be council space. Trade routes that took centuries to establish have been destroyed. Surely humanity can see that we need help. Need help, Jake repeated slowly. That is interesting phrasing, Counselor. Did the Council need help when they voted to strip Earth of its membership? Did they need help when they ordered all human personnel to abandon their posts? Did they need help when they declared human military forces too dangerous to exist in civilized space? The weight of those words settled over Vexithara like a crushing force. Every accusation was true and every truth was damning. The Council had not just rejected humanity's help. They had actively driven away the only species capable of protecting galactic civilization from the threats that lurked in dark space. We made a mistake, she admitted in a voice barely above a whisper. We did not understand what humanity was protecting us from. We saw your weapons and called them dangerous without asking what you were preparing to fight. We saw your expansion and called it aggressive without realizing you were establishing defensive positions. We saw your independence and called it reckless without understanding that you were the foundation that held everything together. Jake nodded slowly, as if he had expected this admission. The galaxy is a dangerous place, Counselor. It always has been. Humanity learned that lesson early in our space exploration when we encountered things that wanted to destroy us, simply because we existed. We built our fleets and developed our weapons because we had to. We expanded rapidly because we needed strategic depth to defend against threats from outside the galaxy, the Void Hunters. Vexithara said with understanding finally dawning in her crystalline mind. Among other things, Jake confirmed. The Void Hunters are just one threat among many. There are machine intelligences in the galactic core that view organic life as a disease to be cured. There are energy parasites in the outer rim that feed on the electromagnetic fields generated by advanced civilizations. There are things in dark space that make the Void Hunters look like harmless pets. Vexithara felt her entire worldview crashing down around her. Humanity had not been preparing for conquest. They had been preparing for survival in a universe that was actively hostile to life itself. Their military strength had not been aimed at other civilized species. It had been aimed at protecting civilization from things that wanted to destroy it completely. The Council saw our preparations and assumed we were planning to attack our neighbors. Jake continued. They never stopped to ask why a peaceful species would build such powerful weapons. They never wondered what we might know about galactic threats that they had forgotten or never learned. They simply decided that we were too dangerous to trust. The irony was complete and devastating. The Council had feared human aggression so much that they had exiled the only species capable of protecting them from real aggression. They had worried about human military power while remaining blind to the threats that made such power necessary. They had called humans dangerous while living safely under human protection. So the Council paid the ultimate price, Jake said with finality. Not because humanity sought revenge, but because they never understood what they were giving up. They saw our fleets and called us militaristic, never asking why we built them. They saw our expansion and called us reckless, never wondering what we were expanding to protect against. They saw our independence and called us dangerous, never realizing we were the only thing standing between civilization and chaos. The transmission began to fade as Jake's ship prepared to depart. The humans walked away in silence when the Council demanded our exile. We gave you exactly what you asked for, along with all the consequences that came with it. The galaxy wanted to know what peace looked like without humans to enforce it. Now you have your answer. The communication ended, leaving Vexithara alone in the empty chamber with the weight of 2 trillion dead souls on her conscience. Outside the windows, the space lanes that had once carried ships from dozens of species sat empty and dark. The great civilization that had taken millennia to build had collapsed in just 2 years without humans to hold it together. In the silence between the stars, Jake Morrison's ship turned toward home, carrying with it the last hope of a galaxy that had chosen pride over survival. The humans had walked away in silence, and the universe would never be the same. The ultimate price had been paid in full.